Okay, so on May 20th, I believe that was the day that you guys passed the internet bill. You made a lot of amendments that day, and you guys worked to 12:30. For you yourself, like you introduced a lot of amendments. I don't know if I'd say there are more than anybody else, but it seems like you introduced a lot of amendments. When you're introducing them, what is what is your your goal with these amendments? Because it seems like some of them fail on votes, some like maybe 3 or 37. When you're doing it, what is your intent with these amendments?
Yeah, every amendment is going to be a different situation. And so some amendments are there to clarify the debate and the legislative intent so that if there's a future court case that the legislative record is preserved. Other amendments, it's something usually that there's something wrong with the bill that needs fixing.
Okay, and when you see that vote, say someone failed 3 of 37, what goes through your mind when you see it fail like that? I mean, do you know like, hey, this bill's going to fail, but I'm just trying to make a point with these bills, bring something to people's attention, or is it kind of like you're kind of like maybe posturing, filibustering the process, to maybe just settle a grudge or anything like that?
No, that's silly.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Rebecca's next question is. Other lawmakers seem annoyed. How do you respond to that? I don't know if behind you people are making comments, or maybe when you're outside people make comments. How do you respond to lawmakers if they seem annoyed by what you're doing?
Well, I'm generally not looking behind me, so I really couldn't tell you about that.
Okay, but how do you take that if they do say express it to you out in the hallway or maybe other areas in the Capitol?
Well, I don't generally get that kind of communication from fellow legislators.
Okay, so I think Delana Johnson, I think you brought up a motion to adjourn in 90 days, and I think she made a comment like the gentleman should not posture so much considering the amendments. I know I'm paraphrasing when I say that, but when you hear something like that, how do you respond to that?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things that we do here in Juneau that are not right, and the people, frankly, didn't elect us to do. I think that's one of them. There's a law that says we adjourn at 90 days. Every year I put forward the amendment saying let's adjourn it 90 days, let's follow the law. I expect that there's going to be many legislators who vote against that. I don't think their reasons for doing so are very good. I think it's a law that we should be following. I think our process suffers when we drag things out and then at the very end we pass a bunch of bills that unfortunately don't get the kind of vetting that they should have gotten. They skip committee hearings, sometimes they skip public comment entirely. And if we were to follow the law and plan ahead and do our work the way we're supposed to, then it wouldn't be an issue. And I think we could all adjourn, 40-0 at 90 days. So, yeah, it's a problem. We're trying to fix it, but I don't think ignoring the problem is going to help us fix it.
Okay, now, what is your goal as a lawmaker? Because you're not part of a caucus. You're not on any committees right now. So, what is kind of your goal right now? Because it almost seems like you're kind of an island to yourself. So, what is your goal as a lawmaker currently?
Well, I think every legislator's goal ought to be a voice for their constituents, and so much of our process right now encourages legislators to sacrifice and, in fact, sell out that voice before they even get down here to the Capitol. So. It's a daily battle just to be able to stand here on behalf of my constituents, listen to their concerns, and make sure that they get voiced in whatever way that I can.
Now, do you at all worry that because you're not on any committees and you're not part of a caucus, like you're not representing your constituents, because you'd have a bigger voice if, say, like you were on transportation or if you are in the House Judiciary? Do you ever worry about that? Like you're not representing them because you're not on any caucus, and what are you doing to resolve that, to get back on a committee?
Actually, it's exactly the opposite. The deal is if you sacrifice your voice and you agree to voice whatever the caucus wants, then you can have committees and leadership positions and more staff and a better parking spot in the whole 9 yards. It's for the legislators like myself and the 3 Republican members of the Republican caucus in the Senate who've said no, they want to represent their constituents. In all the cases, we're representing conservative districts, and those are the ones least likely to be heard or people to want to hear here in the Capitol. And so legislators who want to be a voice for those, and frankly, conservative legislators often are told you can't do that. And if you do, then you're going to be punished. And that's really fundamentally what's wrong with our current process.
If somebody, in the future did, invite you to join a committee, or maybe you entertain joining a committee, would you have any kind of mandates that, you'd want to let them know, like, to be on this committee, this is what I intend to do. Are you okay with it? Anything like that?
Be a voice for my constituents. I think people understand that that's pretty consistent about it when I do that. And it's probably not going to change if someone else is willing to work with something that's better for the people of Alaska and my district, then I'm going to work with them, and it doesn't matter which caucus they're a part of or not a part of. You've had many other legislators in the past who have not been parts of caucus and yet have still been able to work with others, and we open that door and keep it open, and I think others in the minority in the Senate would say the same thing.
But is it your goal in the future to get back on some committees? I mean, is that your intent, or are you
I've never turned down being on a committee. If it's an opportunity to represent my constituents, then I will certainly do that. Never turned down being part of what other Republicans are doing in the legislature as far as caucuses in that line. But you'll find that there are others who say that you can't work with those who are too conservative, and unfortunately, for their part, they don't get to decide, who gets elected. And so I think that goes to the people. If there's a liberal district, then you're going to probably have someone who's liberal. If it's a conservative district, you're probably going to have someone who's conservative. But so much of the antics that we do down here in Juneau is really to criticize who the people elected, and that's just wrong.
Now, would you say one of the benefits of not being on committee is, like, it does give you more time to work on your amendments and make your voice heard in there in front of the entire House, instead of, like, if you wouldn't have that time? Do you kind of see that as a benefit, as a trade-off?
Sure. Well, we worked on amendments before committees and during committees and after committees, and I think in one sense, yes, since I can't offer any committee amendments right now, it is the only place where I can. But if we were on a committee tomorrow, then we'd be looking at whether or not amendments would be appropriate to that committee as well.
Okay, and what do you think? Because I heard you in there talk a lot. You talk about a lot about the role of government and the function of government. For people who don't know you outside your district, just share to us what your thoughts are. What is the role of government is, and what the function is, and what you feel the problem is.
I think the first thing that I would say it is to protect the rights of those that you are elected to represent. And part of that means protecting the Constitution. You take an oath to uphold it. I think that should be first and foremost in the mind of every legislator who stands up and takes that oath and then acts on that. And you have a 2-year term to do that. I think part of that means showing up. And a lot of legislators find reasons not to be here when it's time to vote, particularly on hard votes. That's not my philosophy. I've been here every time that the legislature has been voting. I've been here and will plan to continue to do so until my term's up.
And let me ask you this, because you're not part of any caucus, and like you do, introduce a lot of amendments that you don't get a lot of support on. And I've always noticed, and I respect this about you, that you keep your composure. It seems like you don't let it get you down. How do you do that? Like, when like you're going to introduce something, no one's going to vote for it, and you kind of like you're not part of a committee, you're not on a caucus. How do you maintain your composure and show that, statesmanship up there?
Well, we certainly do what we can, I guess. My staff and I always work to present, hopefully, a respectful and professional appearance in public. I've got a great staffer who does that well. I try to do the same, of course. And part of it is just knowing, what's reality. Reality is that a lot of the things that my district would like to see happen are going to be hard to accomplish in Juneau. So I'm not immediately disappointed or surprised, maybe disappointed, but not so much surprised when Democrats prevail on a particular policy issue, because I think that's largely expected right now, given who chairs the Finance Committee and the fact that the Finance Committee is majority Democrats right now. So I think it's just knowing where you're at and what's possible and working every day to move the ball forward where you can.
Okay, and this is my last question for you. I imagine you probably think, like, if you were part of a caucus, or if maybe you were on some committees, maybe some of your amendments would get more support from the body. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like, no, either way, this is probably how the vote would turn out?
That's hard to say. I'm not sure. I think, again, it would go back case by case for each amendment. We saw one of my amendments pass yesterday, and we just passed the bill today. So I think oftentimes it does come down to what the amendment is, and hopefully, if it's a good proposal, then more people will support it. That doesn't always happen, but you keep trying, right?
Okay, great. And, let me just do a quick follow-up. What's it like, as I said, you're kind of an island to yourself, you're the only person on it. So what's it like being that, being the only person of your caucus, you're a single caucus, you're kind of a single vote. What's that like?
Well, my staff and I have quick meetings, and there's less to argue about. So I suppose that's good. But frankly, you've still got 18,500 or so people that you're working for, and there's never enough of us to go around to handle all the questions and solve all the problems.
If you could do anything differently, would you? Like seeing how things have gone, like not being on a committee, would you do anything differently, or are you fine with the way that you're doing your job?
Well, the ultimatum that I heard, about a year ago was, if you're willing to, pledge ahead of time to vote certain ways on things that you haven't seen yet, then you can be part of the caucus. And that's something my district's never been comfortable with, and I will never be comfortable with.